Today has been terrible for the altcoins, but there's one altcoin that's struggling for a bit longer, a bit more, and that is Fartcoin. Question is, does it make sense to potentially buy this dip now? Let's have a look at the on-chain data, the data most people aren't considering, because in the end, crypto is all about buying low and selling high, and Fartcoin obviously right now is not high, it's rather low. Now here's what I mean. Have a look at Fartcoin's performance in the last month. It went down by more than 40%. And at the same time, Solana just went sideways. Fartcoin is mainly traded on the Solana chain. So really, this is a decline that's not due to the general market. This is specifically a sell-off of the Fartcoin token. Now, I've been covering Fartcoin for a long time on this channel. I make updates regularly. And it looks like over time, with the declining price, the interest in the token is also declining. So here's the very first Fartcoin video. It was published 306 days ago. It performed pretty much according to the average video in terms of number of views. And here is the recent video. It underperformed the average video on this channel. So there's much less attention on the asset now. But maybe that's an opportunity, because attention and prices are somewhat correlated. If everybody discusses a particular asset, the prices tend to go up. When nobody cares about an asset, the prices tend to be low and potentially a good opportunity to buy. Now here's the first time we talked about Fartcoin on this channel. At the time, the price was at 5 cents. The price subsequently rallied massively by almost 4,000%. Then came the crash of roughly 90%, then the recovery, and now we are crashing again. It's a true roller coaster ride. But yeah, it's all about timing. It's about being early. And so I try to be early on this channel. I publish videos on various cryptocurrencies regularly on this channel. I also talk about the general market condition. Now, when I analyze an altcoin, I always want to see how is this altcoin doing relative to Bitcoin, relative to Ethereum, relative to Solana. Because in the end, when we get into an altcoin, we need to get outperformance. If you just want crypto exposure, we just can stay with the top 3. But if you get all this additional risk by buying a meme coin, then we need to get more performance. So it's always about, do we actually outperform just the general crypto market by getting into an altcoin? And so that's why I don't like charts like this. This is just Fartcoin in US dollars. It's going up and down and up and down. But the general macro environment, as in what is crypto in general doing, does have an impact on the prices as well. So have a look at Fartcoin relative to Solana instead. Now we get a much cleaner picture. We have an idea at what point Fartcoin might be expensive, where it gets rather hard to rally further, and at what point might it be comparatively cheap. We suddenly see a trading range. The potential reward is maybe a doubling of Fartcoin. The potential risk is maybe a drop of close to 60%. Since the middle of July, the momentum is rather negative and Fartcoin continues to underperform Solana. But it's at the lower end of that underperformance. In other words, betting now on falling prices of Fartcoin, at least in the short term, is quite risky. We could see a rally of up to 20%. Isn't this much more useful than just looking at the US dollar chart? Once we look at the relative valuations, we tend to see much more stable trends. And of course, nobody knows if those trends will prevail. But in general, it does give good hints at what point it might make sense to take some profit and at what point it might make sense to buy again. Just have a look at this. This bottom here was formed at a very similar level to where Fartcoin previously topped out. I do not think that that's coincidence. Now, the current momentum of Fartcoin might not be that positive, but it's definitely short-term oversold. The question is, when we look at comparable assets, how much more upside is there really long-term? Versus Solana, we've seen a rough doubling, but let's look at other meme coins. So this is an overview of all the Pump.fun ecosystem tokens on the Solana chain. So Fartcoin was launched via Pump.fun, and it's by far the largest of such tokens, with a market cap of 783 million. Number 2 is Troll, which by the way we covered very early on this channel as well, when Troll was still at 3 cents. Now we are at 20 cents. So just another reminder, feel free to subscribe. But just have a look at this delta, right? This is a 4x difference. Fartcoin is definitely an outlier within the Pump.fun ecosystem. Now within the Solana blockchain as a whole, Fartcoin is not at number 1. We've got Bonk, Trump and Pudgy Penguins that's roughly double the size. Now when we look at the historical market cap developments of various meme coins on the Solana chain, we tend to see the market caps peaking out somewhere between 2 billion and 4 billion. We've never seen a meme coin on the Solana chain growing significantly above 4 billion. At 4 billion, it tends to flip around. Yes, there was the Trump token that launched at a higher valuation, but then also it got sold off very, very quickly. When we just look at the rallies, when we look at the maximum growth, 4 billion seems to be the peak. Most meme coins already turn around at 2 billion. And so again, when we look at Fartcoin, that's a bit under 1 billion. A 2x makes most sense as the maximum realistic upside. Very similar to what we've already seen with this chart here, the Fartcoin relative to Solana chart. Now, I always like to look at the on-chain metrics as well, as in who's currently buying, who's currently selling the token. Is there potentially some secret accumulation by the whales and just a small retail investor is selling? Let's have a look at what's actually going on with the holder. Now, here is where most people stop with the on-chain analysis. So just have a look at the number of holders on-chain. There's currently 163,000 holders of Fartcoin. The issue is that this number is very much skewed because there are a lot of wallets that might just hold a few cents worth of the token. Those might, for example, be arbitrage bots, or it might just people that bought Fartcoin initially and then sold the majority, but maybe left a few cents in their wallet. So this number, the 163,000, is not really reliable. Instead, it's better to look at minimum holding thresholds. So on the left, we see the number of wallets that hold at least 1,000 Fartcoin. At the current price, that's a bit under $1,000. In the middle, it's 10,000 tokens. On the right, it's 100,000 tokens. We can see initially quite constant accumulation, but since the middle of April, this is going down for the number of retail investors. Medium-sized retail already started selling at the beginning of February, and the whales started selling even a bit earlier, in the middle of January. No wallet cohort is currently buying. All wallet cohorts still sell Fartcoin on chain. That's of course not pretty, right? We want to buy an asset that has a growing investor base, especially when it's a meme coin, where there's no real intrinsic value, where everything is about player versus player, where all the speculation is basically that somebody else will come after us that buys Fartcoin for a higher price. But when the investor base in general tends to trend down very consistently, that's of course not good for that strategy. We also see that in the last month, the number of first-time traders that interacted with the token tends to rather go down. Also, the number of token transactions per day is trending down. Now, most trading of Fartcoin actually does not happen on the chain and on the spot market anymore. In the last 24 hours, we saw 55 million worth of trading volume on HTX, on the spot market. But have a look at the perpetual futures market. Over here, we had 260 million worth of trading volume. And that was on a decentralized perpetual futures exchange. It's, by the way, the exchange that I personally use as well, Hyperliquid. There's an affiliate link down below. If you use that link, you get 5% off the trading fees. But yeah, the main case I want to make is that price discovery now happens on the derivatives on the price, not anymore on the spot market. Now, most people that use derivatives to bet on Fartcoin tend to bet on rising prices, as in the longs have to pay the shorts in order to get more price exposure. Most people on the perps are actually bullish on Fartcoin, despite the declining investor base. Just have a look at this. This is the funding rate on the perpetual futures on Fartcoin. It's green the vast majority of times. But the problem is that the open interest on Fartcoin is still very high. It's at 700 million. That's close to the market cap. That's very problematic. That means there's a good chance that it could deflate further and bring Fartcoin further down with it. There is some correlation between the Fartcoin spot price, that's here in yellow, and the open interest, the bets on the price in green. When there's more and more bets on the price, then the spot price tends to follow. As the short-term leverage, as the bets decline, we also see the spot price coming down. And currently the momentum for open interest is going down, and so spot, I believe, is very likely going to come down from here as well. The trading volume is still relatively high, and the price tends to bottom out when trading volume is low or attention is low. And of course, most of the time, it's the longs that are getting liquidated, not the shorts, because the majority of perpetual futures traders are betting on rising prices, despite the very ugly holder data. And also despite the current momentum being not that great, with still a lot of further risk to the downside. Very short term, again, we might be oversold, but over the next weeks and months, it doesn't look that great for Fartcoin. Now, I'm currently not touching Fartcoin at all. Even though I'm long-term bearish on the asset, I'm waiting for an entry point for a short opportunity. So if Fartcoin suddenly rallies by say 10, maybe even 15%, then I will enter a short. There is still a potential that we could go up. We're very low on the trading range. But once we are there, right? Once we see a 10% outperformance of Fartcoin relative to the rest of the market, I think this is a very nice short. Crypto, I believe, is more about finding the inefficiencies in the market. Places in the market where we might even be overvalued can just be as valuable to us as a trading opportunity compared to finding the assets that are undervalued and buying those assets. Now, if you've watched a few videos on this channel already, you might see that I approach crypto quite differently to most others. Most others just try to find the next meme coin that does the 10 or the 100x return, but more often than not, those kind of bets just go to zero. I do the exact opposite. I bet on falling prices of the crappy altcoins. And I started trading for this community on the 10th of July. And so far, things are developing very, very nicely. The annualized performance is 79%, while the maximum drawdown was only 2.3%. So this is the exact opposite of buying a meme coin, where you're losing most of the time and you're hoping for this one lucky moonshot. When I look at other people here on YouTube, I don't really see them being that open, as that they show directly what performance they are doing versus the market in real time. And I also don't see them just trading for the community, because it's not that easy to walk the walk, right? Most people just talk the talk. It's easy. Words are cheap, but performance is actually what matters. What I like most about this performance is that we started trading over here and Bitcoin went up and down and up and down. We already had our 12% corrections, and at the same time, the capital pool simply constantly appreciated, with again very little volatility. And so this is how most people get burnt in crypto, right? They see a meme coin, for example, how it's going up, and they're wondering how much higher can it go. So for example, this here, Bonk, right? Bonk shoots up. People consider, hey, should I maybe buy? They might be buying over here, and then things turn out positive short term, but then the exit is never found. Then the asset just continues to get held over time, and then prices crash further and further. And then as we settle at a lower price, that's when most people sell. Another rally follows. The hope is that Bonk reaches similar heights to the prior heights, and again, it doesn't work out. The issue really is that those exit points are much harder to find than the entry points. Prices tend to be low for a longer time than they tend to be high. Those exits are just very brief moments in time. It's the same with everything, right? It's also with Fartcoin, as in the exit is the hard thing. The entry is okay. Buying when nobody is looking is somewhat possible. But selling when we peak in the price just for a few days, that's really what gets wrecked most people. Most people don't exit on time and then just see the price coming back down. The effect is of course the strongest with the meme coins. Right here we've got Dogecoin, the same thing. Things go up quickly. There's a few days where it might make sense to sell, and then if those days are missed, the opportunity of selling is gone again. I try to approach the market very differently. I try to look at what are most altcoins actually doing long term, especially the altcoins that have very high token inflation, where more and more tokens hit the market because the insiders want to sell, because the venture capitalists, they get now token unlocks. They are selling constantly and they depress certain altcoins long term. And I'm simply just betting on those altcoins continuing to do worse compared to the rest of the market. And that's how I make this long-term outperformance, and especially outperformance that's independent of the general market environment. This is one of my favorite websites. It's Tokenomics.ai. It lists various altcoins with their token unlock. And let's have a look, for example, at Fetch.ai. It went crashing and burning, and it's close to an all-time low relative to Ethereum. And the reason is, of course, token unlocks, as in there's more and more tokens that hit the market. And that depresses the price if the demand doesn't grow as quickly. And that's usually the case. Have a look at this jump over here, right, in July of 2024. This is really where Ethereum outperformed Fetch AI massively. Ethereum doesn't have all those unlocks. Ethereum's supply increase is very, very modest, but it's not modest for most altcoins. And that's where we see the outperformance of Ethereum relative to Fetch AI. This here is an outperformance of 177%. I have a look at this. I like to trash on this altcoin all the time here publicly on YouTube. This is Balancer. This is the supply of Balancer tokens over time. The Balancer DeFi protocol started with 20 million worth of tokens, and now the liquidity mining expands that supply further and further. And now we are at roughly 70 million BAL tokens. And here's Ethereum relative to Balancer. So it's just outperforming all the time. Or in other words, Balancer is doing worse. And this is how we make the performance. Balancer has no usage at all. The total value locked in Ethereum is going down. The number of tokens is going up. And so of course we see constant underperformance, and that's what we can make become our profit. So this again, Ethereum relative to Balancer, this blue line over here, that's the Ethereum price itself. So that's how much of a difference this makes, right? Ethereum crashes and rallies and crashes again and rallies again, or you just get constant outperformance with those relative valuation bets. I have a look at this at the bottom. This is the Bitcoin price during the same time. Again, Bitcoin can crash by more than 70%. And our position here just continues rising. The alpha in crypto is to simply do the same thing that the insiders are doing. The insiders are dumping on retail by having more and more token allocation, and we simply just have to make similar kinds of moves. When they are depressing the price and they make money with their price depression, we simply do the same. We are not insiders as in we don't really know what's going on with the project, but we do know that the project will have more and more tokens over time, and those tokens will be selling pressure. Now, unfortunately, the capital pool has already closed for deposits until end of the year. There will be a new capital pool starting in 2026, but for now we are just trading with the capital that's currently available that has already been deposited. But there's still a way to make the same kind of performance, because I still share every single trade that I make for the community pool. I still share that in a dedicated channel. And I want to share the two recent trades. For example, here I closed the Fartcoin short after an underperformance of 8% in just 9 days. So we short over here, the price is going down. And then over here, we've got another one, Trump relative to Solana. It underperformed by 23% within 3 weeks. I'm closing those shorts after they get close to the lower end of the trading range. And then I look for the next entry opportunity once we are higher again. The background of those shorts is, of course, again, token inflation. Just have a look at Tokenomics.ai, see what Fartcoin and Trump have listed as their tokenomics. But yeah, you can simply just copy trade whatever I'm trading. So here are a few wins of community members that post their gains here as well. Now, I understand the doubts. Just because I've been successful with this strategy doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that makes similar trades will also be successful. But I want to make this as simple as possible, and I also want to make this as risk-free as possible. So here's my offer for the first quick win. You simply join Premium and watch 2 videos that are 1 hour in total in length. You're watching this one over here, using perpetual futures on Hyperliquid to bet on relative valuations. And you watch this one over here, very important, risk management with relative valuation bets. Once you've watched those 2 videos, you know exactly how to set up trades like this or trades like this, so that you don't continue losing money with roller coasters like this. Once you've watched those 2 videos, then please join the community chats. When you've joined the chats, I will get an alert message that you have joined Premium, and I will send you a direct message with my current favorite trade. A trade very similar to Balancer. Now, Balancer's token supply is getting close to its maximum cap, so it's not necessarily the best trade anymore. But it's a very similar trade that's still early in its infancy. It's likely going to perform very similar to this trade. Now, I will share my favorite trade with you, but also I will put a little guarantee to this. When you join this trade and you're not making money after 1 month of holding this position, then I will refund the membership fee to you 100%, no questions asked. So you can simply join Premium, join this trade. If you don't make money with it, again, you just get this money back. It's pretty much risk-free. You learn everything. You learn how to make all of those relative valuation trades. You can binge watch all the tutorials. You can just copy trade whatever I trade. If this initial trade that I'm sharing with you won't make money, you get that all for free. You're just risking the 125 US dollars, but if you're not successful, you'll get the money back. Now the capital pool has already closed, but there will be a new pool at the beginning of next year. And if you want to be notified first before that second pool closes as well, then feel free to join the annual membership. You can start with monthly and then switch to annual later. You do not get access to the automated copy trading with the annual membership right now, but you will get a first invite as an annual member in January of 2026. A link to premium will pop up directly on the screen. Just click on that. It will lead you to the website. If it's your very first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish these regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in premium. Cheers.